Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Wedding Photo Podcast. I am your host, Ulysses Del Toro, and I know that the last couple weeks I have been pretty silent. I did mention on the Facebook group that I was going to record an episode, which was right at the beginning of all this craziness that has been going on with the COVID-19 thing, but there was just so many things happening. I felt like things were coming out not day by day, it was like hour by hour. There was new information. All these things are happening. What's happening in our world right now is just really, really crazy. And there was so much information just being put out on social media, on YouTube, through the news outlets. And I don't know, I felt like there was so much going out. There wasn't anything new that I could provide. And I also wanted to be sensitive to all the stuff that was going on. There was a lot of, this whole thing, it's just affected so many people. And, we're all having a really hard time with everything that's going on. So I don't really want to talk about the coronavirus. All I want to say is that I hope everybody's taking care of themselves. Everybody is staying at home and staying clean and watching out for one another. Look out for your neighbors, check in on your neighbors, check in on your elderly, check in on your family and friends, and just make sure everyone's all right. Physically, make sure everyone's all right mentally. We're all struggling through this time, and I think one of the best things that we can do is to be there for one another. So that's all I'm really gonna touch on that. These last couple weeks, like I said, have been pretty crazy, but I really just wanted to come on here to just provide something else, like a little distraction from everything that's going on for all my listeners. So this won't be a long episode. It'll just be a fun little episode answering some of the stuff I saw in the Facebook group and some of the stuff that I've been doing as of lately. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to reach out, you can find me on Instagram at Wedding Photo Podcast. You can also find me on Twitter at DelToroPhoto, and you can come join our Facebook group where we talk about different articles and topics related to the wedding photography industry or just photography in general. You can ask questions on there if you want them to be featured on the podcast, or just if you have a question in general. We have a growing community of wonderful photographers and videographers and people of the like, just wanting to share their input and help everyone out. So come join the Facebook group. I've also recently teamed up with Publisher by Narrative. It's a desktop app that you can use for blogging. It makes blogging more efficient, quicker, easier. They're really great, and they're offering 15% off if you use code DelToroPhoto. You can find the link and links to all of this stuff in the show notes. And if you want to support this podcast, all I ask is that you rate this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, leave me a review. It makes a podcast more discoverable for others to find, and share this podcast with your friends. So one of the questions I asked on the Facebook group was what you guys wanted to hear about, and I had a couple responses on there, and Josh LeGrone responded and said, if you could talk to yourself when you first started your career in photography, what piece of advice do you think that version of you would need to hear the most? Which is a really interesting thing to think about. What would you guys tell yourselves? You know, even if you're not that far along in the industry, even what you've learned up to this point. I've been doing wedding photography for over 10 years now, and it's been a really fun time, just like growing our business. There's been so many different phases in my career. There was a time where I was just learning how to use the camera and deciding what I wanted to shoot when I was still like shooting a couple weddings here and there. I still didn't know if that's what I wanted to do. There was a time where I felt like I was getting better and upgrading equipment. There was a time when I was getting a grasp on things, but I was doing it all alone. And then Maria came in and she learned wedding photography. And then there was this whole new phase where we were building a business together. There's just been so many phases throughout these last 10 years in my career as a wedding photographer. and it's all been really, really fun. But I've learned so much throughout the years, like so much. I really wouldn't even know where to start as far as like what's like the one thing I would need to focus on. I guess the thing I would go back and tell myself is that just enjoy what you're doing. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, because I remember I did put a lot of pressure on myself when I was first starting out. As much fun as I was having, I pushed myself really hard, but I never felt like I was good enough. It took a really long time for me to feel like I was any good at what I was doing. I think that took away from some of the joy that I could have had if I just enjoyed every piece along the way. There was a certain point throughout the many years that I remember it kind of I had that realization that, I shouldn't be taking this so seriously. I mean, growing a business and making money and doing all those things, I did take that serious, but there was a certain aspect that I wasn't enjoying because I was putting so much pressure on myself. So there was a point that I finally hit where I took a step back, and you know what? It was probably after like a rut that I hit. I'm sure we've all hit those times in our careers or in photography where you just feel kind of unmotivated. You feel like you don't have any creativity. I think I put down the camera for weeks or even months, and I just didn't have any motivation. And when I finally picked the camera back up, I did it. I started just playing around and shooting whatever I wanted to. I wasn't taking it serious. And I think that's around the time that I had the realization that, this entire thing, even if I'm building a career out of it, even if I'm building a business out of it, it should be fun. It should be something that I want to do the rest of my life. So my whole mentality on it kind of changed. I didn't take it as serious anymore. And I didn't put so much pressure on myself anymore, and it just made the whole thing more enjoyable. So everything I did from there forward, I took everything as a learning experience. Even my failures, I took them as a learning experience. And I made sure that every time that I learned something new, I really put a focus on how it made me better as a photographer, and as an entrepreneur as well. And it's made the experience just so much more enjoyable. Every time I'm learning something new, I just get really excited, whether I go out and shoot with a friend or whether I learn a new camera trick while at a wedding. Every time I do something new like that, it just gets me really excited for the potential that new skill set or that new thing that I did, how far I can expand it. And I feel like that's how it also helps me to continue to grow. I try to stay open-minded. So like I said, if I could go back and just tell myself one thing, is to not put so much pressure on myself and just enjoy what I'm doing. There's so many things that could be said, but at the same time, like, I feel like most of the stuff that you need to know, you need to learn on your own. You need to make mistakes. You need to learn what things work for you and what things don't for you. I don't think there's not like a set of rules that never do this, never do that, that would work for everybody as a whole. I think everybody has their own path. As you've heard from all the guests that I've had on the podcast, everybody's path has been very different, but their struggles have all been very similar. And I think we all have that in common. And I think you need those struggles to really learn and come out better as a photographer and as an entrepreneur. So thanks, Josh, for that question. I think that's a really good one. Ollie Smith, he said he wanted to see maybe some books that I'm going to read this year, or books that I have read, some that would help to learn about photography or business or marketing. I don't think I've ever really read any books specifically related to photography. I mean, I have I've looked through books from photographers. They're mostly just pictures, right? So I've never really read anything directly related to photography, but I can talk about some of the books that I have read, what I'm reading right now. and some of it can be inspiring. So I'll just go through a list. I just finished Born to Run. I'm a runner. If you don't know this already from my Instagram and stuff, I really love running. It's like my number one form of exercise. It's for me, it's therapeutic. It's really it can be hard, but at the same time, it's something that really helps me relax, and I've always enjoyed it. So I'm building up. One of my goals is to run a marathon. That was something I had planned for this year that I may or may not still do. I'm not really sure, but I have been running a lot more recently and trying to up my miles because I really enjoy long distance running. So I'm trying to see how far I can take that. But somebody suggested Born to Run, and it's about a hidden tribe in Mexico called the Tarahumara, and it's a really, really well written book. It's about long distance running. It's about the deep roots of long distance running, and it definitely inspired me to run harder and run even more so for myself. So it's something that hit really close to home. The way I really enjoy and see running, this book really was like perfect for that. So if you enjoy books on this has some history, and then it's also like a motivational book, if you're exercising or something. So this is really good, Born to Run. Another really good motivational book that I read this last year is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I'm sure you guys have heard the name David Goggins. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. And this guy is one of the most motivating guys out there. If you follow him on Instagram, he never stops. He's working on himself 7 days a week. And his story is just really incredible when you read back about it. He talks about his life growing up. He did not have an easy life, but also he talks about his struggles trying to join the Navy SEALs. I think he failed like 2 or 3 times trying to get in, and his life afterwards. And it's just a really, really motivational story. It's one of my favorite books now. I would read it over and over and over again. I plan on reading it over and over again. So I highly recommend, if you want a good motivational book to read, I would highly recommend Can't Hurt Me. I heard that the audiobook is even better because it's somebody else. It's somebody else reading the book, but it stops periodically for David Goggins to actually step in and talk more about those specific situations that are happening, in the narrative of the book. So it's like an audio book plus bonus content. I haven't heard it yet, but I really want to. So I'll probably do that sometime over the next couple weeks as well. But that's a really good book. I highly recommend it. Some other books that I just really enjoy. One of my favorite books, there's this book called The Last Season by Eric Blem. It's about a backcountry ranger working in the Sequoia National Park. His name was Randy Morganson, and he was a backcountry ranger. He spent, I believe, 25 seasons working as a backcountry ranger by himself most of the time. And he did like over 10 or 15 seasons in the winter, but he did over 20 years working as a backcountry ranger. Lots of amazing stories. His background growing up, living in Yosemite. If you enjoy going to national parks and experiencing the beauty of nature, or just if you enjoy hiking and camping, you would really enjoy this book. It's a really amazing story about this ranger. It's one of my favorite books. One of the other things I really like to read on is, I really like all kinds of books, but I'm really into like true crime stories as well. Not as much as some of the other stuff that I read. But definitely, if it's something really interesting, I'll read it, and I have some favorite books there. But last year, Maria actually gifted me this book that I was really excited to read. It's called In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. It's an older story about a murder that happened in a small town in Kansas, like in the late 1950s. And I think the author actually spent some time talking to the two murderers of the story. And so this book recounts that story, how it happened, some insight, and it's a really, really good story. It's very it really leaves you on the edge of your seat the whole time. Like you feel like something bad's gonna happen the whole time you're reading it. So it really draws you in. It's a really good book. I recommend that one if you like true crime stories. So those are some of the stuff that I've read, some things that I recommend. I have more if you're interested. Feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk some books. Right now, I just shifted my attention to this book called Scythe. It's a young adults series. It's like a kind of like a sci-fi kind of series if you've heard of it, but it's I believe it's a trilogy, and we heard good things. So Maria bought it, she read it and really loved it. She's already ordering the second book, so I decided that I'm gonna read it as well. That way we can talk about it. This is gonna be like, Maria and I don't typically read the same book, so I thought it'd be fun for us to have a book that we can kind of enjoy together and talk about. And I think it's ages 12 and up. So our son, ages 12 and up. So our son said he might want to try and read it as well, because he likes that we're all kind of getting into it. But I just started it. I'm only a couple chapters in, and it's pretty good. I like it, I think. And one of the other reasons I really wanted to read it is because it's just a nice little break, from all these other books. I read a lot of like motivational stuff, and it's really great. But, I feel like sometimes the information, you feel like you're getting the same type of information over and over. So it's good to take a break. I'm going to finish reading Scythe, and I also ordered American Psycho, if you've ever seen the movie. I didn't even realize it was a book to begin with. So I saw that and I ordered it. We order most of our books through Thrift Books. If you've ever gone on thriftbooks.com, you can find most of the books that you're looking for on there. Used copies, different levels of used. Like you can find ones that are really torn apart but have all the pages, or ones that are like brand new and they're a lot cheaper. So I definitely recommend going to thriftbooks.com and seeing if you can find your books there. That's where we order most of our books. And after I read American Psycho, then I don't really know. I have a ton of books that I went kind of book crazy for a little while, I think last summer. And there's like 4 or 5 books that I have that I totally forgot about, but I have them there. They're unread. So I might focus on them right now that we have a little extra time, and devote some time to reading more than I typically would. So that's what we're going to be doing with our books. So aside from books, I guess I wanted to talk about some of the other things we're doing. With a lot of us in this self-isolation, we have a little bit extra time on our hands. I've heard different people working on some of the stuff they normally felt like they didn't have time for. They're working on stuff for their businesses. They're catching up on their blogging. They're working on strategies for when all this dies down and we get back to work, which is really, really good to hear. And some people are taking the time to learn things that they've always wanted to, like learn how to play guitar or do some extra painting that you normally wouldn't do. So I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that I'm doing. I like to do things that definitely keep up some of the skill sets that I have. So, for me, I really love doing photography. I really love doing video editing. So during this time, I've been trying to find some activities that will help me with that. So, I've been just filming random little stuff and creating like motion graphics. A lot of that's for my work. where I need to be doing those things. But I'm taking advantage of the extra time that we have to just practice, learning how to edit in After Effects, learning how to edit motion graphics in Premiere. So I just film random little things and find out different transitions I can do with them, learn how to do different transitions, learn how to use different title sequences. So that's been a little fun for me, just playing around. As far as photography goes, I have been trying to stay creative in that aspect. I've been trying to stay creative. One of the things that I'm doing is recently Maria got me onto TikTok, and I just fell in love with TikTok. It's so fun. I feel like the dad trying to be cool on TikTok, but honestly, TikTok is just an awesome app. Like, the amount of creativity that you can express on TikTok is truly, truly amazing. I mean, you can edit videos in real time and add effects and add filters and text and change the duration of text and the movement of them. And there's just so many things you can do. And the fact that you're, using songs that are like trending, or even the stuff that you're recording, the sound that you're recording could be used by others to create different videos. I mean, you're putting out, not only are you putting out content, but you're creating content at the same time. And it's just a really amazing app. So I feel like I'm barely touching the base of what you're really capable of doing on TikTok. So it's been really fun. Besides making some random TikToks, I'm trying to use TikTok to also be more creative with my photography. So one of the things I've been doing here where I live, it hasn't been, we're sheltered in place, but it's not strictly mandated. Like, they tell us that we can still go out on a walk, exercise. So normally Maria and I will go out on a walk. We'll just go around our neighborhood. And, when people see each other, everyone's just kind of avoiding each other and doing the right thing. But aside from that, I'll still go on bike rides by myself or long runs by myself. But the bike rides I've been using those rides to actually take my camera and film some footage of me going out and trying to get some photos, some random photos of like sunsets or whatever I can think of. And I've been putting together some TikToks, using that as a way to keep being creative. So I've been having fun with that. I've been talking to a couple friends of how, of other things that I can take photos of, working on some possible collabs with some friends. So we'll see where that goes. But I've been using those bike rides to go out and photograph and find fun things to take pictures of, and I've been posting those on my Instagram. So that's been pretty fun. You can take your camera out on your walks and just find cool stuff to take pictures of and edit them differently than you normally would, and just you might discover something else that you like doing in your photography, or you might learn something new. So that's something you can do. Another thing you can do is practice your lighting with your flash systems. Right before all this happened, we had a wedding. We had 2 weddings coming up. We were able to shoot one of them, but the other one, it did get postponed. But I had just bought a lighting system that I had planned on using at that wedding. I had recently talked to Eric McFarlane and Steven Van Elk. They use a similar system. I think I ended up actually buying almost the same system. Yeah, the same system that Steven Van Elk has. I bought 2 Youngnow 660 flashes, and I bought I believe it's the 560 XT transmitter. And I already had one like softbox umbrella that I used for one flash before, so I bought a second one because I wanted to practice some of my portrait skills. So I think I'm going to be making some more videos on that as well. But I was going to use these at weddings to do some more flash photography style of photos for portraits, or even for receptions. The system I was using before, I had 2 flashes, but they did not have wireless transmitters. They just read each other through the infrared. But if you've ever used them like that, you really can't have anything blocking the infrared. Sometimes they don't read and both flashes won't go off. So I wanted a system that would go off no matter what, so I can hide lights if I wanted to do something creative or different. I was really excited to use them. Unfortunately, I don't get to use them at a wedding right now for a while, but I am setting those flashes up here at home. I already did one photo of my son when I first got him, but now that I have both umbrellas, I'm going to play around and I'm just going to play around with the different lighting styles that I can do. I'm going to try to take some pictures outside with them. So we'll see what we end up getting with that. But I will be sharing most of that. If you don't know, I have an Instagram account. It's at Bound by Beauty, and it's just like my personal Instagram account where I post, photos that I take for fun. I try different editing styles and I just play around with it. So there's nothing, it's nothing business. Like the DelToroPhoto one is the one that we use to post all our wedding and family style photography, and we keep it strictly to that. But yeah, this other one is just my personal account just for fun. So if you want to go and check that out, you can go over to at Bound by Beauty. So yeah, there's lots of stuff that you can do to keep yourself busy and work on your creativity and work on honing in your skills even while all this is going on. I know that Adobe is offering 2 free months of their Creative Cloud. If you don't have that, you can actually go check that out and use Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and Premiere and all those stuff. They're offering 2 months free. One of the other things that I came across was Adobe is offering a Photoshop Creative Cloud Masterclass. It's on sale. It's supposedly worth $1,600. It's on sale for $34. I think at that price, there's some pretty good reviews about the masterclass. But if you really want to learn any of these programs, like for me, I'd really want to learn. We're using InDesign a lot more at my job, and I know nothing about it, but I'm finding myself in InDesign more often. So that's something that I would probably use it for. I have been watching more videos on YouTube about it, but if I wanted to take it serious, I think this would be a perfect class to take. So you can look for that. I'll try to leave the link for that in the show notes as well. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to keep up on your skills and work on fun stuff that you normally wouldn't. For me, photography is one of the things that I want to keep playing around with. So I'm going to be taking more photos, sharing them on my Instagram account. If you guys have any ideas, maybe some collaboration ideas, please reach out. It'd be really fun to connect with some of you guys and do some collab photos since, we can't all meet in person right now. Anyways, this is a good opportunity to have some extra fun and do some stuff with our photography. So let me know what you guys are doing to keep yourselves busy during these times, and if you guys are doing anything creative, I'd really love to hear about it. So that's all I have for you guys today. Just wanted to put out a short little episode with some of the stuff that's going on here. If you guys have some book recommendations, I'd love to hear them. I'm always looking for some new material to read. If you guys have ideas or things that you're doing to stay creative, I'd love to hear about that. If you haven't already, you can find me on Instagram at Wedding Photo Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at DelToroPhoto, or you can just join our Facebook group. Like I said, all the links are in the show notes below, so come join us. Thank you guys again for listening, for continuing to listen, for your continuous support. Remember to leave that 5-star rating, leave a review, share this podcast with your friends. It would mean the world to me. So thanks again, guys, for listening. We will catch you on the next one.